Listen up, listeners of Book Geek Unchained. We are rebranding. That's right. The new title of the podcast will be Creative Magic Unchained. We will not only chat with the best authors. No, we will also chat with enigmatic, charismatic artists from around the globe, from musicians, singers, radio hosts, business people, photographers, and everything in between. So, I just wanted to tell you this. Hey guys, today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Fred. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, MP3 player. That's audibletrial.com/Fred. But for now, enjoy the show. Hey guys, welcome. Oh, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for pushing the download button. Hey, I got a few questions for you. Do you aspire to a creative life? Are you tired of working 9 to 5? Like being a robot, come on. There's something in you that you want to get out, that you need to express. You know that. You and I know that, right? Are you asking yourself, what is the point of it all? Or do you want to take your creativity to the next level? This is the Creative Magic Unchained. This podcast is about unleashing your creativity. We talk to experts. We step into the unknown. It's an inspirational podcast, right? It's a magical podcast, right? It's an intuitive podcast as we chat with enigmatic, charismatic artists from around the globe, around the world, from musicians, singers, radio hosts, business people, photographers, everything in between. The Tower of Power, too sweet to be sour, funky like a monkey. Hey, in this place, sky is the limit and space is the place. I am Frederick Bai, and I am your host. I'm a businessman. I'm an artist. What am I? I'm a reader. I'm a podcaster. I don't know. I'm whatever. I'm an animal lover, and this podcast is free for every time you download it on iTunes. Please go or Stitcher. Please go over there and subscribe. It is listener supported. So tell a friend if you think that this thing can be helpful to somebody else. Share it. We're in a sharing world. This is a sharing community. And leave a review also. Man, you know what? If you really like this thing and you want to support it, this is the best way to do it right now, is to leave a review in iTunes or Stitcher. It really helps brother out. And for more podcasts, and you get free gifts, Q&As, articles, blogs, everything you want you need. And if you want to join the creatives community, that's right, go now, subscribe, enter your email. It's free, FREE at frederickbai.com. That's Frederick Bai. That's my name, Frederick Bai. It's a French name. Okay, I can't. I'm sorry. I'm French. But I'm proud to be French. All my folks in French. Hey, I love you guys. In France, sorry, I love you guys. So anyway, this is frederickbai.com. And right before we dive into our today's, we have an amazing guest today. I can't wait to introduce him. I always start off with something funny. So listen to this. A police officer pulls over a driver and informs him that he has just won $5,000 in a safety competition, all because he is wearing his seatbelt. What are you going to do with the prize money? The officer asks. The man responds, I guess I'll go to driving school and get my license, his wife says. Officer, don't listen to him. He's a smart aleck when he's drunk. The guy in the back seat pops up out from under the blanket and says, I knew we wouldn't get far in this stolen car. Just then a knock comes from the trunk and the voice calls out, Are we over the border yet? All right. Crap, people. Anyway, hey, okay. Hey, today, guys, I was so happy to get this interview. I can't lie. I'm a fan, okay? I'm a fan first before being, anything that I just mentioned earlier, before being a businessman. Hey, look, I'm just, man, when I see people I admire, and then I get in contact with them, and then it's like they agree to be interviewed. Woo! What fun is it, man? All right, today we have Cory Huff. Oh my God. And I'm so proud to have this guy. Now, let me tell you something. If you don't know him, you have to know him, because in 2009, he started the AbundantArtist.com, TAA for short, as a way to teach it, teaching internet marketing to his artist friends who were asking him for help. And since then, he's helped dozens of artists go from never sold anything to now selling pieces monthly or weekly. Some of his artist friends and clients have gone on to sell their work for $20,000 or more. Cory is very, very, very successful. He teaches artists to dispel the starving artist myth. Oh, please dispel that myth. I hate that myth. Jeez, no. Artists are rich. Artists are abundant. Artists are prosperous. Artists are the greatest. All right. So he dispels the myth by using the web to sell art directly to his fans. And so if you want to get into a gallery or a museum, the marketing skills he teaches can help you do that. Building your own business online can be complementary to a gallery business for the right artists and galleries, and I will fully agree with this. And this is why I'm doing this podcast. This is why I really want to establish a relationship with you guys, because you guys are everything. You don't listen, there's no podcast. Nobody cares, right? So, and again, it's an honor to speak to Cory Huff, class guy, informative in the interview, and you know what? Let's get to the conversation right after this. Hey guys, quick thanks to RadioGuestList.com, where you can find people to interview for free. Or if you want to be interviewed, you can go there too. RadioGuestList.com. Thank you guys for your support. And speaking of you listeners, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. If you would like to be on this show to discuss a book you have written or that you loved, if you have a book recommendation, or you just want to chat, email me. I want to hear from you at info@fredericbaye.com. That's info@fredericbaye.com. And for advertisement offers, use the same address with subject advertising. Hello. So we are here with Cory Huff. He's the creator of the AbundantArtist.com, helping artists making a living from their art. He's also the author of How to Sell Your Art Online, Live a Successful Creative Life on Your Own Terms. Available now for pre-order. How are you today?
I'm very good. How are you?
I am fabulous.
Thanks so much for having me today, Frederick.
Hey, that's awesome. We're honored. All right. So right before we dive into your current endeavors, you're doing a bunch of stuff. You're working with artists, which is just awesome. Give us an idea here of your background.
Sure. So I started The Abundant Artist about 6 years ago. I have an artistic background myself. I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in acting and theater. All my friends are performers, artists, and entrepreneurs. And when I graduated from college, I got a job for an internet marketing company, a little boutique agency, and I was trying to figure out, how am I going to bring together all of my interests in all of my creative and artistic pursuits and make a living from that. And because I had this day job, I got a glimpse into this world of internet marketing, and I started using what I was learning to get people out to my shows, get people out to my friends' shows. And I started reaching out to other creatives and saying, what are you doing? How are you doing it? And having their interviews on my blog. And basically it just grew from there. People liked what I was blogging about, and we sort of built up this core community of people that were really enthusiastic about the idea that artists can make a living from their work. So fast forward 6 years, we've got classes, I've got a book coming out, which you mentioned, we've got a conference this summer, and we just have this really great community of artists who are making it happen, and I'm lucky enough to be serving that community.
See, let me ask you this: you grew up. You went to school for acting.
Mm-hmm.
What was the mentality what was the mindset of the adults around you when you grew, as you were growing up, as it pertained to creativity and those kinds of endeavors?
Sure. I did not grow up in a artistic family. My family's mostly laborers, retail jobs, that kind of stuff. I grew up pretty poor, but my mother was very supportive of all the things that I was interested in, right? Like when I was my introduction to the arts was in fourth grade. I talked too much in class. And so my teacher told my mom that she should enroll me in summer drama camp. So my mom managed to scratch together enough money to do that. And I got into theater when I was in fourth grade. And my mom didn't know anything about it. Nobody in my family knew anything about it, but I loved it. And my mom was really kind enough to support me in doing this thing that I was interested in. And from there, I just pursued it, as much as I could in as many places as I could. And in high school, I was in a touring Shakespeare troupe. And I really just loved theater, and it kept me from getting in trouble. It kept me out of drugs, kept me out of some of the stuff that that was going on in my life growing up. And so theater and the arts were really a place of solace and safety for me. And when it came time to figure out what I was going to do when I grew up, I couldn't imagine myself doing anything other than going into the arts.
See, that's interesting because many of us grew up in families where, okay, our parents are so rational. They're accountants, they're engineers, they're this, they're that. And, hey, Dad, I want to be an actor. I want to be a painter. What? No, that's not going to happen. You need to go to school. You need to. All right. So if a 19-year-old was going to come to you and ask you, hey, look, I have to make a career decision here. I don't know what to do. I want to be an artist, but it's not it's not a certain work. You're going to live a life of uncertainty. Like you know, and the person hesitates between that and having a regular job, a career, an engineer.
Sure.
What would you tell that person?
I would say don't make your career decisions based on fear. Don't make your career decisions based on one career being more secure than another. Security, to a certain extent, is an illusion. The idea that your engineering job will be around forever is sort of a myth. As technology advances, our careers change rapidly, right? And so I think that if you value security and stability and you value being able to do the same thing every day, then, an artistic path might not be for you. But if you're somebody who, if you have a passion for art, do it. And I will say, being an artist is a hard career. It's not something where you just get up and go to work and you mindlessly go through the day and then come home. Like you really have to be engaged. It's difficult. You have to be an entrepreneur. You have to hustle. You can't just make art. You got to also learn how to run a business, how to promote yourself, how to network and interact with people. You have to be willing to do all of those things in order to have a successful art career. I don't know anybody. I should take that back. There are a very, very small number of artists who just sit there and make art all day. And even then, that's not all they do all the time. Even the artists at the very top of the game, they're still dealing with contracts, dealing with, business stuff. You just don't hear about that part. But, for most artists, it takes up a very substantial portion of their careers. So if you're willing to dive in and learn all of that, definitely pursue an artistic career. But don't let fear of doing it stop you.
See, you're in the business of business. I mean, you coach artists. So you get into the minds and the souls of the artists. And you're one too, many artists, and I speak to many artists, and I'm around writers a lot, and many of them will say, look, I don't want to do all the marketing stuff. It's like, it's an obstacle. It's like, I gotta do that, really? Like, you know what I mean? And you just want to write. And I get that. I totally get that. What would you say to some, because I hear that a lot, just, the publishing company will take care of that stuff, or the music label will take care of that stuff. What would you tell them?
I'll say, you think that the publishing company will take care of it. You think that the art gallery will take care of it. You think the music label will take care of it. And they will, to a certain extent. They will do, these big companies that sell, millions and millions of dollars worth of art, they have their system, right? And for every artist that they bring into their system, 80% of those artists won't go anywhere. They won't sell very much. And then 20% of them will sell a huge amount of art. And those small 20% of artists, they subsidize the risks that these bigger companies take on all the other artists, right? So they have their system. And if you come along and you get plugged into their system and it works, then boom, you're good to go. You're the next Taylor Swift. You're the next Jeff Koons. You're whatever, right? But most artists don't work in the system. And that's not because the art isn't good. There are plenty of artists who get plugged into the big corporate art sales systems who don't work out. But they can do it on their own. Amanda Palmer is a good example of a musician who's like that. She had a following, a solid following that she was making a living from touring shows, selling records, selling merchandise. And she had a big enough independent following that Roadrunner Records came along and they gave her a record deal, and she got into that, and they put an album out, and it didn't go well. She didn't sell enough records for Roadrunner to give her more attention. And she was actually making less money while she was working with them than she was working on her own. And so she figured out a way to get out of her contract and went off back to working on her own. And now she's doing great again. And you can read all about that in her book, The Art of Asking. She's a great example of an artist who made it on her own and who doesn't work in the system because she's not a popular enough artist. Her work isn't mainstream enough to work in the corporate system. But she's got this awesome connection with her fans. And then what happened is, for the first few years, she did it all on her own. She did all the hustling. She sold all the tickets. She handled all the business. But then as her fan base grew and her revenue grew, she was able to hire a manager and able to hire other people to handle the day-to-day business operations so that she could be out there making music and connecting with her fans and doing the things that she's really good at. And that's the path that you have to follow as an independent musician or independent artist, writer, musician, painter, whatever. You have to get out there, grow your following, and handle your business until you have enough money coming in that you can hire somebody to handle the business for you. And that's just the way that it works.
All right. In business, in many things, we talk about the 90-10 rule. 10% of the people, 10% of the actors make 90% of the money, 10% of the entrepreneurs make 90% of blah, blah. Okay, so does it apply also to, like, what do the 10% do that the 90% don't?
They do the work every day.
What work?
Yeah. It's finding the people who are potentially interested in what you do and connecting with them. And that can take a lot of different forms. It can be, getting out and doing interviews with magazines and newspapers and blogs. It can be connecting with people on social media. It can be connecting with people on your mailing list. It can be going out and, doing book tours, doing music tours, showing your work at art fairs and in the streets. It's spending the time to get out there and show your work, right? Austin Kleon's book is so great because his book, Show Your Work, is so great because he just basically spends the entire book saying, show your work, whatever way that means, whatever that means to you, get out there and show your work. And everything else is secondary. Make the work, show the work. That's what it all comes down to. And the artists that I see who don't make it, there's this sort of lie that they tell themselves where they say, I'm showing my work, but they're not actually showing their work. What they're doing is they do a show like once or twice a year, and if it sells, then they do well, and if it doesn't sell, then then they're broke until the next show. But there are lots of ways to show your work, And in the, with social media and the internet, there's no excuse to not be able to show your work to as many people as possible and to spend time doing that on a regular basis. I won't say every day because different people divide up their schedule different ways. Some artists spend, Monday, Wednesday, Friday creating, and they, promote themselves and market themselves on Tuesday and Thursday. Whatever works for you, but making sure that you're spending enough time marketing yourself.
Once again, we're here with Cory Huff. He's the creator of theabundantartist.com, helping artists making a living from their art. He's also the author of a brand new book, How to Sell Your Art Online, Live a Successful Creative Life on Your Own Terms, available for pre-order now. All right. A lot of artists suffer from self-doubt. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you encounter that.
I have, yes.
It's kind of like we have a personal self-esteem, and I think we kind of have a creative self-esteem where we no longer trust our creativity. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. Yeah. You like the whole, oh, this is awesome. Well, maybe this is okay. Oh man, this sucks. I get it. Like the creative process is really hard.
Mm-hmm. So, like what if I'm not good enough or whatever? Mm-hmm. How would you advise an artist, who's suffering in a way from that? Because, it's suffering.
Sure. Yeah. So art doesn't have to be better than mediocre to sell. And sometimes not even then.
Okay, repeat that. Right, sorry.
Art doesn't have to be better than mediocre to sell. And I'll attribute that quote to my friend Gwen Siemel. She's a painter. Used to live here in Portland. Now she lives in Virginia. And the reality is that we see a lot of crappy art sell, right? Whatever creative field you're in, you got all those mystery novels, those drop mystery novels that are written factory style with 20 authors, and they sell millions and millions of books. Like, whether or not that's good writing, a lot of people would say it's not. Those books sell a lot. You get a lot of mediocre pop music that sells millions of records. You got a lot of mediocre art. Everybody, the example everybody loves is Thomas Kincaid. Was his work good or not? Who knows? But everybody seems to think it wasn't. Mm-hmm. But yet he sold millions of dollars. So it's not about whether or not you're good. Like, every artist goes through cycles of good work and bad work. And quite frankly, like, as long as you keep cranking out work, some of it's going to be really good. Some of it's going to be terrible. And when you look back at your career over a period of time, you'll be able to see what was and wasn't good, what worked and what didn't work. And it's a matter of just giving yourself the gift of discipline to continue making, continue creating, continue pumping out new work, so that you give yourself an opportunity to have more hits.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, I mean, every type of endeavor, especially the arts, it's very competitive. It's very, very competitive. It's like being an entrepreneur, Mm-hmm. I'm not original enough. Okay, that goes through my head, or like, someone else is doing it better. I think it's hard to create when you're in that competitive mode. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. How can you overcome that? Let's say, okay, I know I'm going to go into this art gallery, or I'm going to produce this book, and I know so-and-so is going to be there. I know so-and-so is going to be in direct competition with me, or, whatever. I mean, how do you deal with that? It's very hard. To me, you have to kind of be at peace in a peaceful place to create. Mm-hmm. That's just me. How do you deal with that? How do you overcome that?
I think comparison is the death of creativity, right? You have to, for myself, I have to lean into what makes me unique as an artist. And usually the thing that makes an artist unique is they have a unique take on the world. They have some sort of flaw or abnormality in their voice or in their style that makes them unique. I was just watching videos of Joni Mitchell singing last night, and her voice sounded terrible. Right, looking back, I had just been watching some other singer who had an amazing voice with perfect technique. Joni Mitchell had a terrible voice, and she looked like she was about to die when she was performing. But there was a passion in her flawed persona, and it made her so unique and so different. And I think people really responded to that, and that's why we talk about her. And Joni Mitchell's not the artist that I'm thinking of. I said Joni Mitchell. I meant, who did I mean? She's a famous singer from the 70s, and I can't remember her name right now. I'm sure I'll remember it later. Anyways, the point is, there's a lot of artists who are afraid to be who they really are. This is a great story. I'll share this.
Okay, tell the story, but tell us why after that, please.
I think the story will answer the why question too. Okay. So a few years ago, I was working with an artist based in the East Coast of the U.S. She was young, in her early 20s. She's a painter, and she was having some moderate success. She was selling some oil paintings of flowers and puppies and things like that, just sort of standard stuff that you learn how to paint and draw in art school. She was a recent art school graduate, and her work was okay. She was having a little bit of success, but she wasn't really happy with where she was. So we spent a lot of time over several phone calls looking at her work, talking about positioning and marketing and all that kind of stuff. And I was combing through her website while we were on a call, and she's pretty prolific. She put out a lot of work, and I scrolled through a couple pages of her work, and I saw this completely different piece of work. It was a different color palette. It was still a flower, but it was a different color palette, a different texture, just a very, very different take than anything else that she had done. And I stopped and I said, why is this buried 7 pages deep in your website? This is your best work. And she started crying and she told me this story. She said that her family, her family had discouraged her from being an artist. And so she had wanted to work really hard to prove to them that she could do it. So she had built up some very strong technical skills. She was good at drawing. She was good at painting. She had done very well in school, gotten all A's, just to prove to her family that she could make it as an artist, that she could hit all of these check boxes. But what she discovered was once she launched into her career and started selling her work, she had all this great technique, but when she was making the work that was true to her, the work that made her happy to make, her family didn't respond to it. Her family looked at it and said, well, that's not what they taught you to do in art school, so therefore it's not good work. And so she hid all of that work away, and she stopped showing it to her family, and she just made it by herself in her studio, didn't show it to anybody. But her one little act of rebellion was to put this one piece 7 pages deep on her website. And I said, this is your best work. You should put this on the front page of your website and show more of this kind of work. And so she did. And like 6 months later, her career took off. She absolutely exploded in popularity. Wow. Her sales went up. She was much happier because she was selling the kind of work that she wanted to be making. And, I don't know what her relationship with her family ended up being like, but hopefully they were able to recognize that she was making it as an artist because of her vision and because she was doing things that were not, what everybody else was doing. She was being true to her voice and following her voice. And if you listen to all of the experts and listen to this amazing interview with Rick Rubin, the music producer, and, he's produced millions of art. He's produced albums that have sold millions and millions of copies. He's had, dozens of number one hits with all artists in all kinds of different genres. And he said that what he tries to do with the musicians that he produces is he tries to help them get out of their own way. That his goal is to just say, hey, what kind of music do you really want to make? And then hold the artist accountable when they're making the music and saying, you told me you wanted to do this. Are you embracing that? Are you changing direction? Or are you hiding from what you actually want to be doing? And I think that's absolutely brilliant.
Wow. I think you hit a very, very important point here. Her family did not like what she did because it wasn't what it wasn't what school told her was right, basically.
Yeah, and it wasn't familiar to them, right? Like they were not in the art world. They didn't know they don't know anything about abstraction. They don't know anything about impressionism. Yeah. All they're familiar with is sort of the standard what you would see in a very safe art gallery, right?
Yeah. Okay. So that brings me to another point, because I hear a lot of writers too, and and just not writers, just people. Okay. You should go to school in arts to be an artist. Now, should I go to school in arts or not? Like, I think there's that debate.
It's a big discussion. Yeah, it's a big debate. I don't think we can cover that. We could do a whole podcast about whether or not people should go to arts. A whole series of podcasts about that. But here's my thoughts on that. Art school, if you go to a good art school, right, one that's a top tier art school, they're going to do a few things for you. They're going to teach you really great technique for the most part. There's sort of a movement in art school where they don't teach you the technical drawing skills that a lot of artists should have. And so you want to check and say, is it important that I learn how to technically draw well? I think it is. But they're going to give you some good technique for the most part. And art schools are also going to give you alumni connections. They're going to give you connections to the art galleries and the critics and the other people in the art world who can help you get started in your career. Now, that said, of the people who graduate from art school, only a very small percentage of those people sort of get picked by the people who run the upper echelon art galleries, right? Like you get the MFA students, and if there's 100 of them that graduate, maybe 5 to 20 of those students will get picked by one of these great galleries and get a show, and their work will start selling in the galleries. And all the other artists are sort of left to their own devices to figure it out. And then they've got $200,000 worth of grad school debt, right? So, keep that in mind. If you're going to go to art school, can you afford it? Can you get a scholarship? Do you need the technique training? Do you need the alumni connections? And are you willing to spend, $200,000 to $300,000 to make that happen, right? Knowing that debt's never going to go away. On the other hand, if you don't go to art school, you don't go $200,000-$300,000 in debt. You are going to have to find some training. Whether you pick up some books or videos and teach yourself, or you go find a teacher who can teach you. You're going to have to work harder to build up your network and find the right teachers. But you can get to the same level of technique at a fraction of the price. The thing you're not going to get is the alumni connections. But that doesn't necessarily matter. Like if you're smart about it, you can build up your own audience and make a great living that way. And in fact, most of the artists that I personally know who make a living from their work did not go to art school. So take that for what it's worth. And there's my cat. My cat agrees.
Yeah. All right. Hey, that's a great answer. Thank you very much. All right. Just before continuing this conversation, for you, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. I personally recommend the audiobook The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, or you can choose the audiobook of your choice for free by trying audible.com. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Fred. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Fred. You will be entertained, and at the same time, you will help a brother out. So, everybody wins. Go to audibletrial.com/Fred for your free audiobook. All right, once again, this is Cory Huff. He's the creator of theabundantartist.com, helping artists making a living from their art. He's the author of How to Sell Your Art Online. This is the online world now. Live a successful creative life on your own terms, available for pre-order now. All right. When we're starting out as an artist, let's say many people come, I interview quite a few people now, and it's like many have the story of, I was in a corporate job, I hated it, then I decided to just become a painter or musician or whatever. However, you go, okay, well, who's going to take me seriously as an artist? Because all of a sudden you change your title. And all of a sudden, you don't have necessarily, 5 books. You didn't write 5 books, so you didn't paint, that many paintings. And you put yourself out there, and it's like, who's going to take me seriously? What would you tell that person? Because it's nerve-wracking when you get out there at first, you know.
People will take you seriously when you take yourself seriously. If somebody says, "What do you do?" and you look them in the eye, shake their hand, and say, "I'm an artist," they have no reason to doubt you. Yeah. Oh, you're an artist. What kind of art do you make? I make oil paintings. Oh, okay. Where can I see your work? At X, Y, and Z galleries, or you can see them at these cafes or these offices or this, or, come to my open studio. Like, if you take your work seriously and you do the work to promote yourself and show your work in as many places as you can, people will see that you are taking it seriously. And there's nothing wrong with being a beginner. There's nothing wrong with saying, I'm just getting started. I've done X, Y, and Z things, but I'm just getting started. There's nothing wrong with that either. And, I love the quote from Brene Brown quotes Teddy Roosevelt in her book Daring Greatly, and she talks about the gladiator in the arena. Have you heard this speech from Teddy Roosevelt?
Nope.
Where he talks about there's a gladiator in the arena who is he's getting his butt kicked and he's his face is covered in dirt and he's bleeding, but you have to admire that guy because he's at least trying.
Okay.
Right. And for myself, there's a lot of critics, right? Like there's a lot of people who will tell you what you're doing wrong or why you don't have any right to do what you're doing. And they're usually family members, unfortunately. I only take criticism from people who are in the arena. I only take criticism from people who have bled, people who have been dirty, people who know what it's like. I take that criticism seriously. If they haven't been gotten dirty and they don't know what is going on and what I've been through, I ignore them.
Oftentimes I say it's often oftentimes it comes from friends. Those type of critics.
It's really unfortunate that our the people that are closest to us are the people that are capable of cutting us the most.
Yeah, that's crazy. Or they'll say like, "Oh, this is good, okay." Then they talk about something else, and they don't really care what you do. It's when you're starting out, because it's almost like they expect you to fail, or they expect you to at some point just quit it.
Sure, yeah, and you can't really blame them either, right? Because if you're starting something new, they have no idea if you're serious or not. They don't know that you've actually spent 8 hours a day for the last year painting, right? Like they don't live in your world. So have a little bit of understanding and empathy for them as well, because I think that if they knew they were hurting your feelings, they would probably feel bad too. They probably have no idea and they don't know that they're hurting you.
All right, let's move on. All right, this is an online world today. There's so much stuff out there. Someone might think, hey, people, I will put myself out there. We'll set up a website. I will, I have a logo. I'll put my work out there, and someone will steal my work or my ideas. How do you deal with that? What do you do?
Who cares? Let them steal it.
What?
Yeah.
What? No.
You can't do anything about it. Like the odds that somebody steals your work and profits from it are very, very small. You put your work up on a website. Somebody wants to right click and download your image and put it on and print it out to put on their own wall. Great. Their friends are going to see the crappy printed version of your work on their wall. If you're a writer and you publish some work on your blog and somebody tries to reprint it, the best thing that you can do is make sure that as many people know about your work as possible, so that when somebody comes along and tries to steal your work, they go, hey, like everybody who sees it will go, hey, that's not yours. That belongs to that other guy. You know who Lisa Congdon is, the illustrator? So a couple years ago, she had an incident where a company actually stole a bunch of her images and turned around and sold the work to Anthropology and West Elm and a bunch of other companies like that. And Lisa had a huge following because she'd been engaging with her followers for years. She had a big social media following. She had a big blog following. And she turned around and just made a bunch of noise. She said, hey, Anthropology, this company, Cody Foster, is stealing my work. And because of the social media fear, Jezebel picked it up, Gawker picked it up, a bunch of other blogs picked it up, and it became national news for a couple of weeks. And they were actually able to get it shut down without suing them. They got Anthropology and West Elm to shut it down and stop selling that work. If you worry about people stealing your work and you don't put yourself out there because you're worried about people stealing your work, you won't get anywhere. Yeah. People steal stuff on the internet all the time. That doesn't mean that they're going to make any money off of it. Mm-hmm. Put yourself out there, get your work out there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, because you can't really protect yourself anyway because it's worldwide now.
The only way to protect yourself is to have enough money to sue, which means that you got to have millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's it.
Or your work is so ubiquitous and so well known that if somebody tries to steal from you, all your fans are going to say, "Hey, that person's a thief."
All right, let's shift gears. Everybody loves cold hard cash. We all want to make money. Money rules the world almost. Okay, so and then art and the starving artists. And I know it's one of your main themes that you address on your website and your blogs and all that stuff. What is your mindset around art and financial abundance?
Artists can make a living from their work. I know dozens of artists with six-figure businesses. The idea that just because you're an artist, you have to starve is completely false. And the idea that artists who make money from their art are selling out and making lesser work is also completely false.
Mm-hmm. All right, that's it. You just pressed the mist. No, but that's it. You have to be direct. There's nothing.
That's how I feel about it. Like, I've been doing this long enough. I've got a friend. So here's the thing. Like, so many artists are like, you can't make a living from your work. But what happens is you get all these artists who are succeeding, who are making money from their work. They're so busy running their businesses and making art and doing their thing that they're not out trumpeting to the world that they're making a living from their art. They're just out there doing their thing. Right. Mm-hmm. And so not very many people outside of that artist's immediate circle know that they have a six-figure business. Yeah. But I know dozens of artists that are in that position.
Mm-hmm. And they do what you said earlier, marketing, blah, 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 opening themselves out there, rigorous.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. All right. If you go over to our website, theabundantartist.com, and you click on the podcast category in the blog, I think we've got 36 artists that we've interviewed about their businesses. All of those artists at various levels of success, all of them making a living from their art.
Mm-hmm. I know you posted actually the last podcast was with a sculptor. He has like 1 million YouTube followers.
Oh yeah, Leonardo. Yeah. Oof. Yeah, he literally has 1.2 million YouTube subscribers.
My gosh. Yeah. And he's not doing anything special. He's doing his stuff. He's doing his thing apparently.
Yeah, he's just showing people how to draw. He has a huge number of people that watch him draw. And then, a small percentage of those people buy his work, and he makes a living that way.
All right. We all want to save money. We all want to, when we make money, then we want to put, a little bit of money away for our future. But as artists, oftentimes the money is variable. It's like we have variable income. How can an artist, can manage his money on a variable income?
Yeah, this is not my area of expertise.
yeah, I know you're not a financial advisor.
I have a system that was set up by my wife. My wife is pretty good with the financial stuff. We've read a few books. There's a book called Profit First, Profit. Profit First talks about how to run, how to pay yourself with a variable income, and the basics are. You take a certain percentage of your income every month and you put part of it into your business checking account, part of it into you pay yourself a certain percentage and then you pay the business a certain percentage. And then from that money, you give yourself a monthly salary. Mm-hmm. And then anything at the end of the year or at the end of the quarter that's left over in the business, you can draw out as a business draw. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's difficult. You have to live on essentially a little bit less than your monthly average, right? So if 1 month, if over 3 months you make 3,000, 13,000, and 5,000, then your 3-month average is 7,000. So you probably want to pay yourself, something like $4,000 or $5,000 a month, so you have some money left over for taxes and expenses and stuff. And you just, when you have a good month, you don't spend a bunch of extra money. You set it aside for later.
Well, that brings me to my next question. That's why I think I'm reading a few books. I'm listening to other podcasts too. And it's all about building passive income as artists. What are some of the ways to build passive income as artists?
Sure. I mean, there's a few of them. If you're a painter or you make other visual art, print on demand is a pretty interesting way of making passive income. So you upload high resolution versions of your work to these print on demand websites, and we have a list of those print on demand websites over at our website. And when somebody comes to your website, they order a piece of art, and then on the back end, it sends an order over to this other company. They will print the work for you and ship it to the person who bought it, and you don't have to actually do any of the fulfillment. So that's pretty nice. There's some complexities there dealing with print quality and the actual sales process needs a little bit of tweaking, but it's mostly passive income. By the way, the idea of passive income, where you set something and you make money and you never touch it, doesn't exist. It's there are very, very few instances where passive income is completely passive.
Why?
Because it takes maintenance. You have issues come up, stuff breaks, customer service where people aren't happy with something they bought. When you get into growing your business up a little bit and you have some employees, you got to manage people. The idea that you can make money for no effort, it's just false.
Well, I know you're in a better position to tell me, but it seems to be like real estate. Like, it's not true that it's just, you have to maintain the building.
Yeah, I mean, you can hire somebody to maintain the building, but even then, you still have to communicate with those people. You still have to, there's a minimum level of effort. Yeah.
All right. So, next question about money. Maybe it relates to what you said earlier, but fears. Fear, it's a fear-driven world, and most people are driven by their fear, and they live off their fear. Like, that's all they know is fear. And one of the main fear when you start something new, it's like starting a business, is the lack of money. And that prevents a lot of people from pursuing what they really want to do. What would you tell them? Hey, I wrote this book, but hey, I don't have the money to pay for an editor. Or, and
sure.
But stuff like that, and oftentimes they're in a good job, 9 to 5, they're getting the paycheck, everything's fine, Then what? I'm going to go on variable income again? What would you tell these people?
Yeah. The day job trap is really interesting, right? Like, there's a reason they call it golden handcuffs. You got health insurance and you got, all kinds of benefits and perks and all that kind of stuff. And you get to leave your job at 5 o'clock or whatever, and not think about it anymore. Some people have jobs like that. Some people's jobs, have them on call all the time, whatever. But the idea that having a job creates this illusion of security, right? Because we as a culture have decided that having a job is somehow safer than working for yourself. And maybe it is, but I don't think so. I think that my situation that I'm in right now is just as stable as any other job that I could be in, because companies close, they go out of business, they have, a bad year and they have to fire employees. Conflict happens with your manager. The other thing is, if you are, if you're thinking all the time about quitting your job and becoming an artist and, writer, painter, sculptor, whatever, odds are you're probably unhappy doing what you're doing. And so if you're unhappy doing what you're doing and you're unable and you're not able to quit and do something that you really want to do, you're just going to be miserable until you make a change. Right. And I did that. Like I was building the Abundant Artist. I worked a day job while I was doing this. And so I'd work 40, 50 hours a week at my day job. And then I'd work 40 hours a week building my business. And I worked 80 to 100 hours a week. And it was awful for a year. But I'm really glad I did it because now I have a business that not only supports me, but supports other people and helps other people.
Awesome. Basically, you're telling just take the step forward and see what happens in a way. Like, be
smart about it. Don't just quit your job and walk away. But if you've got a day job that is paying you and you are able to put a little bit of money away, like hang on to that while you build your business on the side. And you got to be willing to suffer a little bit, right? You got to lean into it and say, okay, if I'm really going to do this, I've got a stable base that I can work from. So Tuesday and Wednesday nights, I'm going to go work on my business, and Saturday mornings, I'm going to get up early and work on my business. And I'm going to figure out a way to get 10 to 20 hours a weekend on my business to get started. And, I'm just going to do as much of that as I can, while I've got this base, and I'm going to save, I'm going to cut my expenses and I'm going to save money, so that I can put that into the business and have some savings for when I quit my job. So I have a little bit of a runway. I was in a position where I was able to save a bunch of money, and I built my business up to the point where it almost replaced my income before I quit my job. Right. And I think if you're able to do that, totally do that, because that's a great position to start from.
Wow. All right, let's move on. Next fear, rejection. Some people, it's like dating, man. They can't get out of their home and ask a girl out because they're afraid of rejection. And some people can start something because they're afraid their idea, their book, their painting will be rejected. Tell us, what would you tell that person?
Yeah, I'd say give yourself some rejection therapy. You need to go show your work to more people, because every artist gets rejected. Every single one, from the very worst artist to the very best artist, everybody suffers from rejection. And most of the time, the rejection has very little to do with your work. It has everything to do with the taste of the person you're presenting it to. It has everything to do with the experience of what that person is going through when they see your work. And a lot of times people just don't get it, and that's okay. You're looking for the small number of people who get it.
And really, go ahead. Sorry.
The other thing I was going to say is there's a guy named Jia Jiang who did this awesome rejection therapy experiment a couple years ago, and he blogged about it, where he gave himself the challenge of being rejected at least once a day. And so he went around and he started asking people to do all these crazy things. And it was really like crazy things. Like he asked a cop if he could drive his cop car.
Wow.
And he walked into a Krispy Kreme and he asked them if they could make him glazed donuts with the colors and shapes of the Olympic rings, right? Like the Olympic ring logo.
Yeah.
And he went and knocked on somebody's door and asked if he could, I think it was sunbathe in their backyard. And the crazy thing is, people said yes to all of those things.
Really?
Yeah. So like this is somebody who he had a failed business. And so, and he recognized that part of the reason the business failed is because he wasn't willing to reach out and get the help that he needed. So he gave himself some rejection therapy by going out and intentionally trying to get rejected. And what he found out was that people are actually awesome and more than willing to help. And he ended up getting far more yeses than he thought he would.
Wow.
So usually if you're afraid of being rejected, get in line. So is everybody else. Rejection's part of the process. You just have to be willing to experience rejection. And I get it. Like I'm afraid of myself. I hate being rejected too, but it's just part of the process.
And sometimes people don't even reject you; they just are indifferent. Like, they like you may show them your painting and they just have a glazed, what I mean, they don't care, or they just don't answer your emails, or just and these things they're small rejections. But sometimes indifference is even worse than rejection. It's even worse than a no. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah. Indifference is definitely worse than a no. I would much rather have a no.
Yeah. When somebody doesn't answer your email, you can't really do anything. It's like, okay, anyway. All right. The third one, failure. Ooh, it sucks to fail. It hurts to fail. It's humbling to fail. And many people are petrified by it because if they fail, oftentimes we think about our friends, or we think about our what is so-and-so is going to say and blah, blah, blah. What would you tell that person? So they don't want to start something new because they're afraid of failure.
It's the same thing as rejection, right? We all fail. We have artistic we have artistic projects that suck. We have, business partners that let us down. We have, we have lapses of judgment where we lash out at people. Like, we fail all the time as humans. And if we're not failing, it's because we're not trying hard enough, or we're not trying things that are challenging enough. Failure is part of life. You just have to embrace that as well.
Yeah, it's like it's as you said, like rejection. If you're not rejected enough, it means you're not doing something right. That's it's like what you just said. If you're not failing enough, well, you're not trying hard enough. Anyway, all right. It's a business, we agree on that. Art, you want to make a living. I think, do you absolutely have to be a businessman to make a living from your art? Do you think?
I think you need to understand the basics.
Yeah. All right. So many people are looking for the right agent, the right publisher, the right, gallery, and you don't want to be screwed over. You don't want to be, you don't want to be around people who are unscrupulous or anything. What advice would you give these people? Because sometimes artists, their brains doesn't work business wise. Like
I don't believe that. I don't believe that at all.
Oh, okay.
I think if you say I'm just not a business person, or my brain just doesn't work that way, it's an abdication of your responsibility and power. If you have a mental illness, if you have a mental illness that prevents you from forming coherent thought. Looks like they're testing the fire alarm out here. If you have a mental illness that prevents you from forming coherent thought, get treatment. Yeah. But business is not complicated. Business is not as hard as making a complex piece of art. It's just not.
Okay, great.
So understanding the basics of what it takes to succeed in life is a minimum requirement. And anybody who says, I'm just not a business person, I'm not a computer person, blah, 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 you're abdicating your responsibility. If you don't understand it or you can't comprehend it, find somebody to help you. Okay. Letting that stop you is just an excuse.
Would you say when you have a contract in front of you for anything, for an agent, for anything, to I don't know, get a lawyer or something, or...
Maybe. If you can't afford a lawyer, then, read it and get some, find some other friends, find some other people who have been there, who have done it before, and get their advice. Mm-hmm. If you can't afford a lawyer, this is why you need to build up your own professional network. Get some advice. You can get advice from people without having to pay for it every time.
Mm-hmm. All right, good. All right. What is the number one habit of successful artists?
Showing up and doing the work every single day.
Okay. Well, that means, doing the work, that means doing their art and doing the other stuff, right? Marketing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Showing up, doing the work every single day.
Okay. All right. You take, okay. How do you remain calm in uncertainty? Again, it's like being an entrepreneur. Some people meditate. Some people, those emotions, what's going to happen next? Oh my God, what's going to happen next? How do you remain calm in uncertainty?
I don't think you have to remain calm. You have to retain your wits about you. But I think it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad or scared. But you also have to keep moving forward. Bravery is feeling the fear and doing it anyway, right? Courage is taking action in the face of something that is scary. You have to have courage.
Okay, so just courage. there's not a rule book on what to do, right?
No, I mean, things are scary. Life is scary. Bad things happen. People are mean. People lose their temper. People are rude. It is up to you to decide how you're going to react to those adverse situations. Nobody can make those choices for you. You have to, move forward.
Mm-hmm. What do you do when you're blocked and nothing comes to you?
Keep working. Write of it. Like if you're a writer and you're, I don't believe in writer's block, but if you're a writer, and you have a writer's block, write about your writer's block. There's a reason that you're blocked. Write about that. Mm-hmm. If you're an artist and you don't have any ideas, make art about the lack of ideas that you have. Mm-hmm. It's usually down to fear or there's something that you should be making art about that you're ignoring. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's exhaustion, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're just tired. Go take a nap, go eat something, make sure your blood sugar is normal, go for a walk, and go back to it. Give yourself permission to take a little break. But, writer's block that lasts days or weeks it means that it's indicating something else is wrong.
Do you feel that creativity is spiritual growth or is spiritual?
I think it has a spiritual element to it. I think that a lot of people equate artistic activity or creative activity with communing with God, and maybe it is to some extent, but I don't equate creative or artistic action with worship. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with the loneliness associated with creative work?
I don't know. I'm lonely. That's how I deal with it. I'm lonely. I think I do make an effort to make friends. This is a challenge for me. I get the inherent loneliness of making things because it's hard to make things with other people. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of very creative people have a tendency towards introversion. Mm-hmm. But having a few close friends that you can get together with on a regular basis is nice. Cultivating friendships is nice.
We're going to wrap this up. We got a few minutes left. Your view on the future for artists in the coming years. We got online businesses now. We got Twitter. We got all of that stuff. What's your view for artists in the coming years?
I think that right now is a golden opportunity for artists to build their own audiences, to connect with people directly. It is an unfortunate reality that online social networks are consolidating around larger brands. It's becoming harder and harder to do a Google search and not have the top results be a large company. Mm-hmm. So building your own audience right now will predict your future. In general, the trends I think are going to be towards giving artists more opportunities to connect with individual collectors and individual fans. But I can see a future, somewhere between 10 and 20 years down the road where even so much of social media is owned by large media conglomerates, just like traditional media is now. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So basically, you think there's a bright future?
I do think there's a bright future. I think innovation will happen. I think that there are going to be things besides Twitter and Facebook. There are going to be, whether it's other social networks or some future version, distributed networks or something like that. There's some technology that's coming down the pipeline that's interesting, that'll give people an opportunity to connect with others directly. But I, from what I've seen on Facebook and Twitter and other social networks that are owned by large companies, I think that's going to consolidate it into the hands of large brands. It's just the way that it works.
All right. if you were stuck on an island, no one else, $500 in your pocket, an internet connection, and a laptop, what would you do in the next 7 days? That's the last question.
I would probably write a one-man show about being stuck on an island, and I would set up a website and maybe a YouTube channel, and I would do the show live on YouTube and ask people to pay me for entertaining them so that I could get off the island.
All right, I got it. Hey, by the way, what's the number one action a wannabe or us can do now, you think?
Start making and start connecting with people.
Okay. Any way they can, by social media and all that stuff?
Yeah, whether it's social media or in person, whatever way makes sense to you and you're able to do.
Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Hey, where can we find you? And find your work and your book?
Theabundantartist.com.
All right. And what other services do we have?
Oh, we're on all the social medias, Facebook and Twitter and all that. But theabundantartist.com is the best way to find out about us.
Yeah, and you're doing business coaching, right?
Yeah, we do. We have classes about selling art online, and I do coaching as well.
All right, cool. Hey, Cory, that was wow. That was informative. That was inspiring. Thank you very much for your thank you very much for your time. Basically, I really, really appreciate and that's it. And thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Oh, how was that? How informative was this? How informative was this? Cory, man, thank you very much for agreeing to the podcast. It's an honor. It was fun. I learned a lot, and I know you guys, the audience, the people, you learned a lot also. So I just want to thank again Cory Huff for this insightful conversation. What a wonderful, kind, cool dude, you know? And I love these kinds of conversation. It's deep. It goes, it's smooth, it's simple, he's honest, and I can ask for more. So right now, go to his website, theabundanceartist.com. There's so much stuff there, and you'll be inspired. You will be inspired. All right, as for me, before it's time to ride off into the sunset, I just want to say a few things. First of all, the only thing basically I want to say to you right now, what you're going to do now is subscribe for free to our creatives community on frederickby.com so that you may be the first to receive the latest episodes, free audio gifts, and inspiration. Get out of your comfort zone right now. Get inspired and go now. frederickby.com. That's frederickby.com. It's all free, FREE, so there's no excuses. Go now, frederickby.com. And with this, stay safe. And don't forget, live with purpose, passion, and love. Bye-bye.